So let's look at the ramifications of the latest Middle East developments for the people of Iran and for the Islamist extremist regime headquartered in Tehran. As you know, Donald Trump announced the looming ceasefire on social media, congratulating everyone and offering blessings to everyone. Another post that changed the world in a moment. Elica Le Bon is an Iranian Brit lawyer who's in contact with family in Iran and is an activist for the Iranian people. Elica lives in California, and I asked her about the response in the US.
You know, it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one because there's so many mixed emotions happening, especially amongst the people inside Iran right now. You know, I don't think that Iranians anticipated that this was going to be a war that was going to liberate them. Nobody expected that this was a war for regime change by any means. However, I do think there was a sense of optimism that their liberation or a regime change would be incidental to this war. I think a lot of Iranians expected that once these, IRGC facilities were struck, the regime leaders were targeted, the nuclear facilities were down, that the regime would sort of be incrementally weakened, which would lead to their own internal regime change. So I think right now, I think it's just a time of confusion. What does this mean? Does this mean that the regime is going to stay in power? Because if it does stay in power, that's going to mean a serious crackdown on the Iranian people. And they've already started executing people for allegedly collaborating with Israel, which basically just means supporting the strikes. So it's actually very scary if the regime does remain in power.
Well, this is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's all about the Iranian people and what's happening there. And it makes me wonder, though, perhaps apart from, of course, the military action taking out so many key installations of the Iranian regime, do you think perhaps the Ayatollah and his mullahs have opted for the ceasefire as a way of preserving their regime? Perhaps they're worrying about the backlash from the Iranian population.
Absolutely. And I think what this proves more than anything, which is what the Iranian people have always known, which is this is just a regime of puffery. This is just a regime that wants to puff its chest and prove that, tell the world that it's, the big bad wolf and death to America and death to Israel and death to everybody. They aren't doing it for anybody except for their fanatical followers at home to believe there's some legitimacy in their fight against Western imperialism. They don't mean it and they've never meant it. And so in these instances, you find out that this really was a bluff the whole time, because when given the opportunity to lay down the weapons and end the war, they were quick to take it because they want to hold on to power more than anything else.
I want to show you some of what was reported from Tehran by CNN just yesterday and get your take on it. This is supposedly a protest in the streets of Tehran in support of the regime. Have a look.
Punch the United States and Israel in the mouth, he says. Trump, you are threatening my leader, this woman says. Don't you know my nation believes death is sweeter than honey? What do you have, Israel? He says. You have nothing. You are occupiers, unreligious. You're killing people, killing women. You kill everyone. You're terrorists.
Elica Le Bon, could that be a legitimate organic protest in the streets of Tehran, or would that have been something staged by the leaders?
I mean, it's really hard not to laugh. It's honestly hard not to laugh that anybody thinks that that is even a little bit legitimate. We actually have surveys that come out of Iran, like the Gammon survey, that shows that at least 81% of Iranians are opposed to this regime, 4% are unsure, and it's less than 15% that are sort of on the regime side. Of that 15%, you're looking at about maybe 1% that are these types of fanatical supporters. And I think it's very, very telling about the fact that the Western media is falling over themselves to find these fanatical 1%, almost as if, finding a protest by neo-Nazis that are rejected by all of society, except not so much these days, and saying that this is representative of the United States population. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Meanwhile, when these organic woman life freedom uprisings that were happening, that reflected 90% of Iranian people, including 99% in the diaspora, the media didn't seem to want to, show those protests when we are, forced to answer this question. Well, you say that Iranians are these democracy-loving, freedom-loving people. Where are their protests? And I say they're there. They've been there for the past few years. They're just, the media's not showing them. And the media is just selectively showing you these 1% of rejected fanatics that nobody in Iranian society takes seriously.
Yeah, I just want to also point out that we see in Western countries, unbelievably, even in Australia, there are protests of people supposedly supporting the Iranian regime. Now, a lot of these are the people who have been protesting in favour of Palestine or Palestinian aspirations and against Israel, and now they've switched allegiance to Iran as well. But there are other people of the Iranian diaspora who have something else to say. Here's one.
But a smaller group supported the US action.
They are using our Iranian civilian people as a shield to protect that damn Ayatollah.
Now, I said last night that given so many people who have left Iran have done so to flee the Islamist extremist regime, that those views would reflect the great majority of the Iranian diaspora around the world. Is that the case? Give me a sense of that.
Absolutely. And the same survey shows that 99% of Iranians in the diaspora are opposed to the Islamic Republic, which is why I rounded it up to about 90% of all Iranians in the entire world that are against this regime. And if you look at these protests that are in New York, that are in Germany, where they are, holding up this bloody flag of the Islamic Republic and wearing their keffiyehs, not a single person in that crowd, not one of them is Iranian. But if you go to the protests like the one that I just came back from of the Iranian, this is exactly what I wanted to say. If you want to know where all the Iranians are that are absent in the hands of the Islamic Republic protests, they're all at the Free Iran from the Islamic Republic protests. And it's so bizarre that not a single human rights activist, not a single humanitarian, not a single social justice warrior is at the protest where we're saying hands off the Iranian people. They're all at the protest that says hands off the Islamic Republic. What is happening?
It is bizarre, especially the Iranian women, of course. Thanks for talking to us again, Elica. It's great to hear you, and congratulations on your continuing support for freedom in Iran.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you.